Welcome everybody. This is Deanna Laird with Accounting Fly, and today we have a great session with a couple of hires from accounting firms to share with you their experiences as their first year as an accountant. Really, I think it was going to give you some great insight of things to think about, some of the things that they went through as a new accountant and starting off their career in this industry. And I really hope it helps prepare you for when you're either launching your career or at least getting ready to think about that in the upcoming months. So again, so glad you're here. Hoping you're having a great start to August, and this should be hopefully really well worth your time. For those of you familiar with our webinars, you know that we expect and welcome your questions. So there's no difference here. We want to hear from you on what is important to you and what you'd really like to hear. I also have a few questions that I'm going to pose to Liz and Allie just to get us started, okay? So, listen in, but also be thinking, what is it that's important to you, and what do you want to get their perspective on? And to do that, use the question panel in the webinar toolbar, and I'll get those questions from you. I'll go through them. If we do run out of time for all your questions, just rest assured that we will get answers back to you. Make sure that you get the information that you need. All right. If you run into audio problems, and if you're not dialed into your phone now, know that the phone option is available. Okay, and it's often a bit more reliable if you are running into audio problems using your laptop or your phone or your tablet. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and briefly introduce to you Liz and Allie. Liz is with the audit practice at Schenck in Wisconsin, and Allie is with the tax practice at Sikich. So I think it's great that we have tax and audit both represented here. It'll be interesting on if their perspective differs between the two specializations or not, right? And that might be something that you particularly want to ask about. But they're going to give a little bit more information about themselves and let you know, more details about who they are, what they've experienced so far. And like I said, we'll start off with some questions that we have already that we want to convey with you, and get those questions coming to me as well. Okay. So with that, Liz and Allie, I'll hand it over to you. And Liz, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Well, as Deanna said, my name is Liz Slavinsky. I work in Milwaukee at Schenck SC. I was actually born and raised in Wisconsin Rapids, which is in the middle of Wisconsin. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, which is a small university in central Wisconsin. I got my bachelor's degree in accounting and business administration in the spring of 2014. I did go for 5 years to get my credits to take my CPA exam. And then I moved down to Milwaukee in June of 2014 and started working at Schenck in the audit department. And I work obviously as a staff accountant, and I've worked there just a little bit over a year. And I just took my ethics test actually this past weekend, so I should be licensed as a CPA in September.
Perfect.
I'll hand it over to Allie.
I am Allie Wilkins, and I graduated with a similar degree with my BBA from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. I graduated with my master's then in 2013 and started full-time at Sikich as a tax specialist in September of 2013. So I've almost been with Sikich for 2 years. Prior to that, I was an intern with them. Other than that, I'm originally from Eagle River, Wisconsin, which is close to the Upper Michigan border. Other than that, I live now in Milwaukee. Also.
Yeah, we have a good representation of the Midwest here, so that's great. But I think a lot of what you have to say is going to be applicable to firms across the U.S., so this will be fun. Before we start the questions, actually I'm going to run a quick poll, okay? And this is just to give Liz and Allie an idea of who you are, audience. Those listening, who your level of experience essentially. So go ahead and let us know your level of experience if you're still a student or if you already have some professional experience. And once we get about 50% answered, the rest of you have about 5 seconds, and I'll close the poll. Okay. All right, pretty good. And so the majority of you listening have graduated already, but early career, so from 0 to 2 years experience. So this is, I guess, great, great topic for you. And then 34% of you are undergraduate students right now, so something for you to help prepare, what's coming up. And then Allie and Liz, 19% also master's students, so that's great. And welcome to those of you who have 2 or more years of experience. It's fantastic. So I guess you might already know, at least first year in your career, but maybe this will help if you're changing careers or just to even just get a perspective from others of what it was like for them. So welcome, everybody. Okay, so I first wanted to start off with actually a recruiting question, just because I think it will help set the stage for those who are looking at making sure they get that job so they can have that first year as an accountant. Allie and Liz, can you just quickly share with the audience how did you go about recruiting? How did you go about getting and finding this position?
I can start.
Okay.
The University of Wisconsin-Whitewater has a very good internship program, which I would assume is pretty popular across the board. And I received 6 credits for this internship program and did it during my second semester of my senior year. The goal of a lot of firms, at least in the Milwaukee area, is to hire interns that they would like to also hire on after the internship. So I treated it as a 3-month interview during tax season, and immediately after tax season I got a full-time offer for when I finished my master's degree. And so most of my upfront interviewing and things were for my internship, which I did 7 interviews for my internship, and then you rank the firms and they also rank you. And that's how I ended up where I am.
And I have actually quite a bit of a different experience. I went to a smaller school. Whitewater is a main accounting school in Wisconsin, and I went to University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, which isn't one of the main accounting schools. So my campus actually didn't do on-campus interviews and things like that. So everything that I did to get a position was all on my own, sending out resumes and cover letters to companies that I wanted to work for. So I knew that I wanted to be in the Milwaukee area and move to a bigger city. So I researched public accounting firms that I would be interested in working for, and I knew that I wanted a more regional firm, which is what Schenck is, and so that's kind of how I ended up with the position that I have.
Okay, terrific. So when we think about then, you have your job lined up and you're about to start. What would you recommend as the best way to prepare for that first week or the first month? Making sure that you're ready, making sure you have the right tools, the right clothes even, and you just are all prepared. What are some of the actions that new hires should go through to make sure they get a really good first start at success?
I think my biggest piece of advice would, if you haven't already visited the office, I would recommend asking if you can do an office tour. And then at the office tour, you can do things like check out what people are wearing, try and see what the protocol is. If you don't recognize a theme, definitely ask. Ask what time you are expected to be there so you can prepare accordingly. I would drive to the office maybe even a few times during busier times to see what route you should take and try and arrive early, obviously. Also, my biggest piece of advice would be to try and meet as many people as you could during that office tour so you were a little less nervous on that first day. Otherwise, just realize that everyone's going to know that you're nervous, and that's going to be okay. It's normal.
Yeah, I would agree with Allie. Usually companies will send you a packet or at least an email of an itinerary or something that you're going to, kind of explaining what your first day will be like, or maybe even your first week, or who you're going to have lunch with and things like that. So if you can get an office tour, like Allie said, that would be really helpful. But if you can't do that, you can always look on LinkedIn or other internet sources and at least familiarize yourself with the faces that you'll be meeting. And as for dress code, definitely just ask. If they don't tell you, I would hope that they would tell you ahead of time. I would also say go more formal than more casual if you're questioning it. You're better overdressed than underdressed always. But yeah, they usually let you know ahead of time. But if not, you can always ask.
Mm-hmm. I think that shows that you are very prepared, and that's very important to them.
Okay, terrific. We have a good question from the audience already about accounting software programs. So they're interested in knowing what software programs your accounting firms use and which do you recommend to be familiar with?
My accounting firm uses Caseware, which is a document storage, and they also use my tax preparation software is ProFX ProSystems. I would definitely recommend something that's universal is being very good within Adobe, PDF, and all Microsoft programs. It would be my recommendation.
I would definitely agree with Microsoft Excel for sure. My company uses ProSystems Engagement for our document storage and binders, but definitely preparing yourself using Excel is definitely going to be helpful more than anything else, because depending on what firm you go to, they might have different software, but all of them will be using Excel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and kind of related, another question from the audience about training, in regards to those applications, but even more broadly, how thorough and for how long are new hires trained in your firms, and do you find that consistent with your knowledge of the rest of the industry?
Sure. I know on the tax side we do 3 days of training, and mostly we do training on just general systems training, and then a lot of it we'll do throughout your internship or first year of experience, as a lot of it is learn as you go, and you'll realize that it's hard to learn without actually doing it. I know our audit side does 3 days of training also, and then they do by engagement, they do training as well.
We're fairly similar here at Schenck. It kind of depends on the time of year you're hired, but it's a lot of training on the job, because doing audit, the best way to learn it is to do it. But they do train you when you first get there for 2 or 3 days on engagement and the programs that you'll be using. And then we also have something called Audit Watch, where they actually send everyone off for 3 days, depending on what level you're at. But you actually have to attend that every year, no matter what level you are, up until you're a manager. And that's just training in general on audit, or we also have Tax Watch. So it's just general training. But for the most part, when you first hired, it's on-the-job training, but first you get a couple days in the office showing you how to work things.
So Liz, there's a question specific about audit, and any recommendation on specific subjects to prepare someone for the audit track that they should brush up on maybe before they start?
Well, I mean, if you pay attention to your audit classes, you're going to be just fine. But you're going to want to know kind of things about cutoff testing and how you would generally test cash. You want to kind of refresh your memory on those things if you haven't taken audit right away. Usually people take it in their last year of school. So if you took it earlier than that, you're not as sure of things, you'll definitely want to look up those areas that we audit. We audit cash and prepaids and equipment and all of those different areas. And I would say that that would be helpful if you can't remember how you would do those types of things. But as I said, you learn on the job, and people are so good at explaining things and they're understanding if you don't get it right away, and you can ask questions.
Okay, great, great. All right. This is great. We have several questions coming in already, so this is exciting. Another one related to training, but really this person would like to hear a comparison about how your internship training compares with your first year training.
Sure. I actually did a returning internship during my master's, and so the longest I was ever away from the office was 6 months, and so I did not do another systems training when I began. But as Liz was explaining, with her firm, our firm also does a yearly tax training for 2 days, so that's more of technical skills instead of our programs. But usually our new hires will come back and they'll just do 1 day of training. Otherwise, I would say if you were coming in as completely new and did not have an internship, I would say you probably will do the same thing that an intern would do on the first few days, because it really is general program information.
Yeah, and I did not intern with my firm, so I guess my opinion on that wouldn't really be relevant.
Okay, no problem. All right, good. So in the regards of kind of learning on the job and the presumption you're going to have to ask questions, right? Well, what if you have a difficult time getting those questions answered in order to perform a task? How do you go about getting the information needed? And this particular person, added a comment that they work with a group of older people, so they're a little set in their way. So, I guess that presents an obstacle if you're with some people that aren't as forthcoming, maybe not as accustomed to having to train people. So can you give them advice on how do you go about that, making sure you get the information you need?
I don't have too much experience with people not helping me when I needed it, but I think you can find a lot of things, if it's system related, within your system, using the help button or simply Googling. I Google a lot of Excel tricks. Sometimes I think I use Google more than other programs, so that's okay. But I think that if you have people who are not as willing to help you, maybe you could schedule a set time when they could go through things with you, and that may help them fit it into their schedule, as they may think they're too busy or whatnot to help you. But other than that, your success is based on their willingness to help, so I think try and convey that to them.
Yeah, I also haven't had too many issues with people not helping me when I need to, but I do know people teach and learn in different ways, and sometimes the way that someone teaches you isn't always the way that you would, like, the best opportunity for you to learn it. But the one thing is, firms have more, you're going to be working with more than one person, more than one manager, more than one senior. So my recommendation coming in is to find 1 or 2 people that you really feel comfortable asking questions to. And if you're not working with one of them, and I would obviously recommend asking who you're working with first. But if you can't get the answer from them and you're having a hard time with that, I would go to that other person that you feel comfortable with. But also, even a level up or another manager might be able to help. In our firm, everyone's really, really open and helpful, and if you're having one issue with somebody, then there's always someone else to go and ask. But I agree with Allie that Google can be your best friend sometimes, that you can try to Google things as well.
Right, so, it sounds like it takes a combination of maybe some creativity and also proactiveness, right? And also, understanding that different styles exist. So just to absorb in as many ways and as many fashions to help you out. Okay. So one person has asked for a little bit of information about the firms that you work for, the size and the kind of clients that you serve? And do you think that these attributes of your firms have make a difference in your first year experience?
I completely think that the size of my firm makes a big difference. We are a mostly regional in the Midwest firm. Sikich has over 650 employees, over 11 offices. I know our largest office is just 150 employees. I started when I was an intern, my office was under 100 people, but in my department was only about 15. I think that definitely has a lot to do with how I was trained and the openness and the willingness to help. And that's actually why I chose the firm that I did, because I wanted to feel like a small, tight-knit family and I could go to any of them and not only enjoy working with them, but I was also moving to a new city and I wanted to be able to have more of a personal relationship with them and get advice from them on where to go out to eat or things like that. But I definitely think the size firm has to fit your lifestyle. Definitely.
I would actually have to agree with Allie. That's the reason that I chose the firm that I chose, is because I wanted, Schenck is a small, medium-sized company. We audit, smaller, medium-sized businesses. There's 9 offices. We're only in Wisconsin. So we're considered a regional firm, but we have 9 locations throughout Wisconsin. Our corporate office is in Appleton. Our 2 biggest locations are Green Bay and Appleton. So the Milwaukee office isn't actually the biggest office, but the office I work in Milwaukee has about 75 employees. That's including administrative assistants, and then we have mergers and acquisitions, cost segregation, and some specialty areas that also work in our office. The audit department alone that I work in is about 15 people, and I think that makes a huge difference with the openness of people helping you and the like the ability to ask questions and things like that, and how comfortable you are with your employees. Because our partner in charge, I'm even comfortable going and talking to him, and I know in a bigger firm that's not always the case, and even managers, you aren't as easily accessible as it would be in a smaller firm. So it really just depends on who you are and what your personality is and what kind of environment you want to work in. And that's, the culture that I work in is what I was looking for, and that's how I chose Schenck.
Okay, cool. So kind of related to that, can y'all both share what time, like your typical day starts and what time it ends? And how does that change during your busy season?
You can go first, Liz.
Okay, so as an auditor, typical day for me, it depends on the client. I'm out of the office about 75% of the time. I'm really only at my desk, maybe twice a month. Or if I have wrap-up time, for some reason we actually get wrap-up time because, we're pretty busy. So I'm usually out at a client location. So my morning starts when the client gets there. Sometimes they want us there by 8. Sometimes they want us there by 9. It really is dependent on their own schedule. So we're kind of at the mercy of what they want us to do. And then same with when I leave. We stay until the client leaves, and then we go home and work more sometimes. So it just depends on the busyness of it. Right now, Schenck actually does a lot of 401k and benefit plan audits. So we're actually very busy during the summer. I work right now between 40 and 45 hours a week, which isn't bad. But it's usually, 8 to 5 and then, a couple hours at night, depending on how busy you are and what client you're working on. And then during busy season, our busy season starts pretty much right away in January. Probably the second week of January, which I know is a little bit different than tax. And we're busy through the end of March, beginning of April, I would say, would be our busiest times. And that's a lot more travel for me and some overnights, so I do work more, I would say as a staff accountant, I would say between 60 and 65 hours. So we're consistently busy longer throughout the year. So during our busy season, we don't work probably as much as tax, but we work more than them during the summer.
I can attest to exactly that. So my typical day is I try and base it around what other people in my office work. So if a manager is that I'm working with typically would come in at 8, I try and be here around that time. But we're very flexible because we don't have to go to a client's office, so that helps. So I typically get in around 8 and leave around 4:30 during the summer. I probably work between 35 and 40 hours during the summer, and then September and October are a little bit busier, probably at least 40 hours, sometimes 45, just because of the extended deadlines for tax returns. And then during busy season, we ramp up towards the end of January and progressively work longer hours until April. So in February, we probably work 60 to 65 in March, and the first 2 weeks in April, at least 70 hours a week. Typically, I've never gone over 75, so that's kind of don't do much good after that many hours in a week. But I would say my day is very flexible. I think most accounting firms now want you to have the flexibility and be able to work from home or things like that. So I would say that's a great thing about the public accounting career path, is you have an extremely flexible schedule.
Okay. So Liz, you mentioned travel, and we have one question about what are the expectations around travel? Is it typical to start visiting clients' offices right after you're hired, or is there kind of an introduction orientation period? And then how do you get acclimated to travel? Because that it's a different. It can be draining on you, right? Or maybe if you approach it right, just fine.
I mean, there is an adjustment factor, definitely, because I'm at a different client every single week. So my office changes every single week, which is actually something that I really like, and why audit was more of an area that I was interested in, because I like the different atmospheres and the different people that I get to meet each week. But when I first started, I had a week in the office prior to going out to clients, but for the most part, you pretty much start right away, because that's really the best way to learn. My office, as I said, is regional, so the amount of travel isn't as far and as long as maybe a bigger firm would be. So I only travel within the extended Milwaukee area, so most of the time my commute is between a half hour and an hour, depending on where I am. And then I am traveling out to the client every day and back and forth. I don't spend a lot of overnights. During busy season, there are overnights that I have to do. I actually do probably the most out of my firm, and that's only about 5 weeks total. But like I said, since I am somewhere different every week, you have to get acclimated to working with different people each week, and working at a different desk or a different conference room or a different office space every week, which can be kind of a challenge. But it really just depends on your personality and your attitude towards it. If you like that kind of thing, I really enjoy the different spaces that I get to work with and the different people I get to work with. So.
Okay, great. Let's see, Allie, you talked about your hours in tax season, right? And I think
Yes.
The maximum amount of hours in a week, but someone is curious about your worst day during tax season. I have known of one person who stayed as late as 2 a.m. And do you find that typical? Did you ever have to do that? Or is it kind of balanced throughout, even though busy, but balanced?
You have control over your own schedule, and so I don't think I would ever put myself in that position where I would have to stay until 2 a.m. Communication is very open, so if you're feeling overwhelmed, you do work in teams often, and work can be moved, and it is frequently, depending on if something comes up with one of your clients. I think my first busy season, I would say, is definitely my hardest as a first full-time busy season, because there was a lot more, not requirements, but expectations, and I was working on a lot of larger clients, and it was hard for me to learn to ask for help and to balance my time. I think as my second full-time busy season this last tax season, I was a lot better at communicating where I was at on projects and moving around projects if I knew I wasn't going to be able to make a deadline. So that was a lot more enjoyable for me. I'm a morning person, so I prefer to get in earlier than stay later. So typically, I try and start the beginning of the week working from 7 a.m. until at my busiest time probably 9 p.m., but I won't work past then unless absolutely necessary because my brain is just shot by then. And by the end of the week, my hours typically go down just because you get more tired and there's more going on. On Sundays, you spend a lot of time preparing for your week, and by Thursday, you probably don't have any prepared food left, and so you have to leave to eat meals and things like that. But I've never worked until 2 a.m. That's not, at my firm, you're not expected to do that, especially if everyone's not working till 2 a.m. Otherwise, they would move the work to other people who are clearly not as busy as you.
Well, that's refreshing. I guess literally refreshing. All right. So what is the one thing you wish your accounting instructors had emphasized in your classroom before you began your accounting career? Liz, you want to start?
Oh, that's a tough one. I guess one thing, it's not that they don't tell you this, but I guess, you know, going in you're going to be so nervous because, you know, what if you don't know everything, and what if, you know, their expectation is higher, but you have to realize that they understand that you're first year and you don't necessarily, they know that you don't know everything, and as long as you're asking good questions and you're trying to learn and absorbing as much as you can, that's okay, and it's okay to maybe not know right away, and it's okay to just ask.
I would agree with that. I think that a lot of times professors have never maybe been in the positions that you are going to be applying for, and so I think that it would help for the ones who are to tell you about a typical day in public accounting, because public accounting is very different than private industry accounting. Also, another thing that I wish professors would have emphasized more was the use of Excel. The only experience I really had in Excel was from prior jobs and prior internships, and just having the tips and tricks or knowing that you can find an answer somewhere is extremely helpful. Once again, Google comes in handy if I don't know how to do something in Excel. Otherwise, I think that your college experience is anything that you make it, so definitely try and get involved in organizations and take your classes seriously.
Okay, we have a couple of questions around work-life balance, so I'm going to combine the two of them since they're related. So I guess in general, they're interested in knowing if you feel like you have a healthy work-life balance, and then if you can weave into that more specifically, that's, if you've had thoughts about starting a family and managing your career, and maybe you haven't thought that through, and that's fine, but if you have, kind of what are your thoughts around how do you, kind of managing your life overall, combining your family and your career together?
I will say that it is an adjustment going from school to work life, definitely. When I first started, I had 1 week before I started studying for my CPA exam. So I had 1 week of freedom where it was wonderful, and then from that point on, it was an adjustment to figure out how do I do fun things, work, and study all at the same time. You definitely have to make a point to find that balance, because it's not, I mean, it's definitely not easy, but I think it is possible. One of the managers that I work with always says, the work is going to be there tomorrow. So you may be very overwhelmed, but you have to realize that I mean, there's deadlines, obviously, but if you're, not getting enough done right now, then maybe you do need to step aside and go for a walk or do something else. So, I mean, I haven't thought too much about the family aspect. I'm 1 year out of school, and that's not really on my radar right now. But I have more of a perspective as CPA life and studying and working at the same time. I definitely had to set time aside to do fun things, to do studying, and to do work. And I had to make a point to do each one of those, or else I probably would have went crazy.
Yeah. I think that I have a good work-life balance. It's pushed very much in my firm, as they know if their people aren't happy, they're most likely going to leave. And turnover is obviously not good for any company, but especially in public accounting, once you have your clients, turnover is very hard on them. Something that I try and do to keep a work-life balance is I try to plan things way ahead of time, otherwise I just won't do them. So, and also it's good to have things to look forward to. During busy season, I would say schedule things out. I don't have a regular gym membership because I know I won't go. I would rather go home and sleep. So I schedule classes, and you lose your money if you don't go. Otherwise, just being cognizant of the fact that you're a better worker if you're not stressed and angry, and you still have to do the things that you love. Otherwise, you are not going to be successful in balancing your life, and in long term, you will most likely be, you'll get tired of it. Something about family, I also chose the firm because when I met with a lot of people from Sikich, a lot of the managers are working moms and dads, and oftentimes have reduced schedules during non-tax season or non-busy season, and so that was something that was really promising for me. I know I want a family in the future, and I know that if you're a good worker and they want you to stay around, they're going to work with your schedule and work around your family. I know a lot of my managers, they'll pick their children up, around 4 or 4:30, and they'll go home once their kids are in bed around 8. They log back online and they work until they go to bed. A lot of them also wake up early before their kids too and do their work then. Otherwise, they have reduced schedules, and as long as they can keep up on their work and their clients, they know that you having a life outside of work is beneficial for the firm as a whole. And so if you are working for a good firm, they're going to recognize a work-life balance, and having children is important. If it's important to you, your firm knows that it's important to them also.
So to those listening, make note of this in your interviews. If you're at a stage where you're going to be interviewing soon, these are legitimate questions to ask the firms. And remember that interview situation it's a two-way street, right? So both Allie and Liz, got these aspects, learned about these characteristics of their firm to make sure it was the right fit for them. So note these things down that you should be learning about on the firms you're considering. So, okay, kind of quickly, real back to the extra hours, during busy season. I think both of y'all had mentioned that you use busy season, it is what it is, right? And you have to get the job done. You use non-busy season to kind of balance out the hours. But someone has asked if you get paid extra during busy season, or is it just approached as an overall annual kind of balance of things?
My firm does the overall balance of things. I've heard of other firms that do like a busy season bonus. My firm does not. You are based an annual salary, and obviously your hours are analyzed when they do promotions and the reviews, which we do in the fall before busy season.
My firm is the same way. We have our annual salaries, and busy season is what it is, and it kind of comes with it. They do perks and things like that during busy season to kind of help you get through it, which is kind of helpful. We cater food in 3 times a week, and they sometimes have activities or things during like a lunch hour to kind of get away and relax a little bit and get your mind off things and get refreshed for the afternoon. So they do some things to kind of have it as an incentive, but salary-wise, it doesn't change. It's just kind of the overall yearly salary.
Okay, let's talk performance reviews a little bit. One person has written, in the focus initially was on a staff auditor, so Liz, we'll start with you, but Allie, then you can pipe in on what is different from a tax perspective. What's the criteria for success upon which you're evaluated on?
As a staff, I just had my first performance review, and actually we do performance reviews at the managers and higher level seniors all get together, and they actually talk about every employee, and it's a whole afternoon meeting for them, and they discuss who they like to work with and who are the kind of jobs that you've been doing, if they're happy with the work that you're doing, because obviously they're reviewing your work. If you get along with your employee or other employees and your other staff, those are the kind of things that they look for. And then you sit down with one of the managers and they talk through what other people said about you. Each manager and senior can make comments specifically to clients that you've done well, you caught on quickly, or you did work outside of what you were normally supposed to do, or you went above and beyond, and they kind of analyze that as a whole and talk through it with you using specific examples of what people said and things like that, and that's kind of how you're reviewed.
I believe that they've changed ours over the years based on industry, but some of the things that I'm ranked, we're ranked 1 to 5 in that category, and so it's ability to work with others, ability to research, because I'm on the tax side, research problems before concluding things or asking questions. I think the progression is really important, and I know for internships, because I'm on the recruiting team, a lot of things that we look for during an internship is your ability to learn from your mistakes and learn from things that managers teach you and improve over your internship. Also, your ability to fit in with the culture is the second most important thing, I would say. And other than that, it's just working in groups, problem solving. Your technical skills, I think, come as you are, at your job later and you start to specialize in things. So I would say for the first few years, the most important thing is learning and growing, and definitely taking the opportunity to experience as many things as possible. Other than that, we only do the 2 reviews a year. I know for our audit team, they do a review after their larger jobs. I don't know what the rule is, but it's if you're on a job, if you work more than 100 hours on a job, they do a review for you. I'm not sure, Liz, if you can touch on that.
Yeah, we actually have evaluation. Ours are a little bit lower, but we can do evaluations after any job that we work. I think more than 20 hours on, something like that, which is most jobs. And you can send it off to a manager, and they can give you feedback on what they think you did well, things that they maybe thought you could have done better, just to get more immediate feedback than just your annual performance review or your semi-annual review.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So when is it okay to start voicing your opinion or your suggestions, even if they're a little bit against the status quo?
I would say, keep your opinions obviously about work and try not to be too negative. Try and be constructive. I don't think I voiced my opinion for the first year just because I was feeling everyone out and didn't want to step on anyone's toes, but I think that it's completely acceptable. I have like a mentor who I talk with, and I think it's acceptable to voice your opinion as long as it doesn't come over as complaining and it's more constructive. I think they definitely value your opinion as they're in a different, they may have been here for 10 or 20 years and a lot of things have changed since then. And so I think they take your opinion seriously.
I definitely think it depends on the size of your firm and the culture of the office that you work in. My office, everyone is very open. I know that I can talk to any of my managers and come to them. I would say I would probably started feeling more comfortable between 6 and 9 months into my internship. I felt like I could say more about what I was feeling about certain jobs or different things. But as Allie said, I would definitely make sure to keep it constructive and make sure you be as positive as you can or as constructive as you can with the feedback that you do give.
Okay. So could each of you talk about the things you like most and the things you like least about your job? And if you'll weave in there the most difficult situations you've faced so far. These are good questions, aren't they?
Yeah. I think the thing that I like the most about my job is working with different people all the time and just working with people in general. Whenever professors would make me work in groups, I always hated it in college, but it's definitely made me grow and learn a lot about working with different types of people and more of a diverse group. So that's definitely my favorite thing, is working with other people. The least favorite part of my job would be the difference in schedules throughout the year. So just I may be not busy at all in November, and then December I can't keep my head above water. Or in April I have tons to do, but then in May I'm not twiddling my thumbs, but I'm not as deadline oriented, which is hard to adjust to every year. I think the most difficult situations usually arise when dealing with unhappy clients. A lot of times on the tax side, it's not your fault, but a client may get a notice from the IRS for no fault of your own, and it's just an uncomfortable situation. Your client doesn't want to pay you to have to deal with the IRS, who has sent them random notice that wasn't triggered by anything. It's just based on random selection. And I think that would be the most difficult part of my job, is learning how different clients operate and how they want to be communicated with and things in that nature.
Similar to Allie, I would say definitely the thing that I like the most about my job are the people that I work with. You spend a lot of time with these people, oftentimes more than even your friends or your family sometimes. So, some of my coworkers are my closest friends because we spend that much time together. I also like the fact that I get to go somewhere different every week, meet different people. I've said that earlier on in the webinar. That really is one of my favorite parts of my job. Probably something that I would say I don't like as much is how busy we are during the summer in the audit department. We do a lot of 401k pension benefit plan audits, so we are a lot busier than probably even other firms are during the summer as an audit team. And that's probably something that maybe if we could be a little less busy during the summer, it would be nice. The most difficult situations probably that I've been put in are just dealing with controllers and CFOs of companies, and being out there and knowing that they really don't want you there necessarily. You're more of a nuisance to them, and you're adding work to their workload, and they don't really like that. So it's sometimes hard to get the information that you need, or they're not as forthcoming as you wish they would be. And you're kind of telling yourself, well, if you make this, the easier you make this, the easier it is for us to, and the faster we get out of here. But sometimes they don't always understand that, so they make it a little bit more difficult than maybe you would like. But we're always with other people, and I'm always with a senior, so if there are issues that come up, you can talk through it with the manager, talk through it with the senior, and things like that, and it gets resolved.
Okay, for each of you, how much of your time is spent researching?
I would say, obviously, during busy season, I do a little less research just because of the nature. It's a lot of times quicker to ask someone who has experience with it. Otherwise, during the summer, I research a lot of state and local tax issues and more in-depth issues that I run into. If I run into a problem, I know I have the time to look into it. And so I would say probably 5 hours a week I'm researching.
And I don't do a lot of research at all on the audit side.
Okay, interesting. All right, so as a staff accountant, how do you get involved with other activities like recruiting? And if so, how do you recommend someone going about it? And in those other activities, does this add to your responsibility and your work schedule, or is it somehow embedded in as overall benefit to the firm?
I got involved with the recruiting team just voicing my interest in attending events. I actually only recruit at the school that I went to, so University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, which is one of our 2 largest schools that we hire from. So I just voice your interest, I would recommend. And it is in addition to my normal workload, so I don't get to take less client work because I do it, but obviously if I'm away all day doing interviews or things like that, I'm not expected to come into work after. I just have to do my work at other times and know that I need to juggle that time a little bit more. But I enjoy seeing the students, and it really puts into perspective. You remember that you were there at one point, and I just try and help students as much as I can.
Yeah, similar to Allie, I just kind of voiced my opinion as that I was interested in doing something like that. And it is in addition to my normal workload, so it's just on top of everything else. But I really enjoy doing it, so.
Do either of you or both of you belong to a professional association, such as AICPA or your state society, etc.?
I belong to the WICPA, which is the Wisconsin Association, and then also the AICPA. I'm also involved with the Waukesha County Business Alliance, which is where my office is in Waukesha County, so that's more of a networking events.
And I'm in the process of joining the WICPA, so not yet, but soon to be.
That is something that I think is pretty universal that firms will pay for, so that's really nice in public accounting, that if you want to be involved in something, they're pretty apt to let you.
And then there's an interest in knowing about any books that you recommend or that have been influential in your careers. Any come to mind?
I unfortunately have not had much time to read. I know my firm offers like book clubs, but I haven't been able to do any yet. So I haven't, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm probably not much help. The only books that I've been reading lately are my CPA books, so yeah. That's probably not very interesting and not much help. So.
Well, they are influential, so.
They are influential and they are important, but they're, yeah, that's a different side of it.
Okay, so we got a couple of broad ones here, and we're running out of time, so these are good to, I guess, wrap some things up. How did you choose public accounting for your career, and when did you know you wanted to be accountants? Or what was it that triggered that interest in you?
I can go first, I guess. I didn't know what I wanted to do even when I was in college. I started out and I really didn't know. and I kind of had an idea of business, but I wasn't really sure. So I started taking business classes just because I needed to pick something. And I ended up taking an accounting class, and I really, really liked it. I liked the professor, and it kind of fit my personality, I felt like. And, from that point on, I was like, okay, I think, this is what I want to do. As for auditing, I didn't really choose auditing until probably my last year of school when I took auditing and, thought through which side I would want to be on and what type of environment I wanted to work in and the type of work that I wanted to be doing. And I chose public accounting because I thought I would get more experience. I know that they have the busy season and things like that, but I work with a lot of different clients. I get to see a lot of different businesses and meet a lot of different people. So the broad aspect of it is what kind of pulled me in. I'm not at the same desk every day doing the same work every day. I'm doing there's a lot of variety, and that's what I really like about it.
I actually took an accounting course in high school, and I know 0 accountants. I don't think there's more than 5 CPAs in my whole county, and so it's not a career that's very well known where I came from. But as soon as I took an accounting course, I did very well on it, and I loved doing that homework, and so I thought, okay, this could be something. And so I went to Whitewater. Still did not know what sort of accounting career I wanted to go into, but as soon as I met firms that were public accounting firms versus private, I realized that public accounting firms were a lot of them had younger staff or a wider variety of staff, and all in all had a larger accounting staff that you'd be working with, more people than in a private industry accounting job. So I like that, and I like the fact that I don't do the same thing every day, and you're able to experience a lot of things all within even the same week, and a lot of different industries and professions, different styles of companies, how their leadership structure is and things like that, and I think it gives you a great overall business insight, which is very important as a younger accountant just graduating. So that's why I chose public accounting. And I did not have an idea between tax and audit, and I think I just chose more for the lifestyle. Contra to Liz, I enjoy going to the same desk every day and working around the same people, knowing where I'm going to be able to eat lunch and driving to the same place. I don't like traffic. I obviously came from a really small town, so I don't enjoy driving, and so just going to the same place every day is really comfortable for me. But if you do like to travel and you get bored by the same place, I think audit is a valid option, and you still get to do different things every day. So
just to piggyback that real quickly, someone's curious about the number of friends that didn't get into an accounting firm. And I think that just gets back to kind of the security of accounting job and maybe why you thought it was a good career path. Did you find that true where accounting majors typically have success in finding jobs?
I missed the whole question.
Yeah, okay.
So I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Really just to
No, I can.
Did you find that, looking at your friends and other accounting majors, did they have success in finding jobs after school? Hello?
I missed it again, too.
Okay. You know what? I'll get back with you on that, and I'll get the answer out. But we are at the end. Let me ask, can you hear me?
I can now.
Yes. Okay. All right. We're at the end of the session. So just if you could take 10 seconds each to leave with the audience your top 2 to 3 pieces of advice, that'd be great.
I would say get yourself an internship and get as much experience as you can while you're in school. during the interview process, get to know the culture and the employees that you'd be working for the company that you choose. And then once you start your job, don't be afraid to ask questions and be a sponge pretty much. Learn as much as you can, be open to learning, and you would succeed.
I think my biggest pieces of advice are to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and you'll grow. Don't just settle and be comfortable. I would say to build your network and try and stay in touch with as many people as you can. You'll need them in your future career, and it's awesome to be able to stay connected and hear their experiences. And try and have a mentor once you do start working. I've seen it be an extremely valuable asset to my career, and just being able to go to someone that you can get advice from is very important.
Okay. Thank you both so much. This has been great, and really appreciate your insight and your experiences. For those questions that we didn't get answered, I'll reach out to Liz and Allie, get their comments for you and get back with you. But to everybody, thank you. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.